This is a Porsche, but it's not mine, it's that bloke's. And we're gonna find out all about it in a tick, but first, this. Please watch, like, and share this video because not only is it very much appreciated, but money from these videos is going to charities of various descriptions with a focus on health, mental health, and particularly suicide prevention. So help others, help others. Okay, back to the video. Hugh, good to see you again. Can you talk us through this beautiful Porsche? That's all I know about it. What is it? What's stock? What's not stock? What have you changed? What have you left alone?
Where do we start? So I've had this car, this year it'll be nearly 20 years I've had this vehicle. So we've had a very long, rich life together and it's morphed several times. I'd say this is probably version, I don't know, at least 2.5, maybe 3. But I mean, look, it was, when I purchased it, it was a Guards Red. It wasn't a factory Guards Red car, but it was a, you know, at the time when I bought it, it was a Guards Red 3 litre. 1977 Model 3 litre 911, and I bought it. I cherished it, and it was ratty, but it was drivable. It was everything to me. It was my first Porsche, and it cost me everything I had, and I loved it and adored it. But over time, I've managed to hang on to it, and it's sort of it has sort of evolved into what we see here.
How old were you when you first got it?
So I was 21.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
So I was 21 when I purchased this car, and
that's a pretty cool car for a 21-year-old.
Yeah, it was potentially one of the most irresponsible things I've ever done, but I had it for over a year before I told my father. Actually, anyway. But look, it survived. It survived. Children and mortgages and everything else, and it's still here, which is great. And yeah, it's a lot of other cars have come and gone, but this one is sort of, it's sentimentally, I'm very attached to it.
So 77?
77.
911?
Yep.
Any special letters or numbers or characters at the end of that?
It's a 3 litre, but it's sort of now, it's a 3 litre Carrera, but yeah, so they were for 76 and 77. So that was, and then because you had sort of other cars of the era were sort of running 2.7, these were running a 3 litre, and these were sort of pretty much your bigger capacity 911s up until they then went out to a, sort of the 3.2. But for the era, these were sort of top dog for the naturally aspirated 911s. And at the time when I purchased this, like 20 years ago, these were totally unloved. No one was really into these sort of what we call impact bumpers, a G series impact bumper 911.
Yep.
They just, yeah, everyone loves the early cars, but these were sort of a bit kind of naff. And at that point, people were actually making them look like newer Porsches. Now we're in a scenario where people are actually pulling them backdating
hey, there we go.
into early Porsches. But
we'll talk about the engine as we get around. In terms of the front of the car, these, I'm guessing, the foggies at the front, not standard.
They're a later edition. So this is part of the 2.5 volt. I'm going to say it's 2.5/3 volume, whereas it's now turned into more of a tarmac rally car, and having a bit of fun with that. I sort of couldn't help but put some spotties on.
Spotties, front splitter. That
is stock for the Carrera. The front splitter. All those rubbers are all stock, and they usually had that front spoiler, and that then married in with the rear tail. For many years, I used to have a flat deck lid on it, but only recently I've got an original period correct tail. They usually have like a lower sill on there as well, which I took off as part of when it originally got resprayed.
Non-standard?
So that's a standard wheel.
Yep.
So that's a 7x15" fork, which was a standard wheel. I'm running an 8x15 mini light on the back, and the mismatch wheel is a bit of a nod to like the early ST cars used to run a mini light, because back when they were needing wider wheels, Fuchs actually didn't make a wheel wide enough, so they ended up using mini lights. So if you look at like the early STs, cool. They ran like a staggered and odd wheel combination, and this is just a little nod to that. But I do have another set of wheels which I generally run on, which are some Steelies, which I run in like an 8 and 9 they've got a custom offset, but they're the track wheels. This is the road rubber. So this is sort of in tarmac rally spec at the moment in how you sort of see it.
Speaking of rubbers, when 2.5
evolution got done,
yeah, we're talking new windscreen, new seals, new rubbers.
Yeah, most of it. There are still some ones that still need to be sort of replaced. But for most of it, most of those things were done, and that was sort of a scenario.
That's the EV plug in there. Is that right?
Yeah, like yes,
yeah,
yes, absolutely. But
so standard wipers, standard side mirrors.
The car. It's probably the car is largely, relatively stock, to be honest. Like, I really like these cars. I'm not like a full purist, but I sort of love, a certain authenticity to a car. So I've tried to keep the car, whilst it has been rebuilt and refreshed and restored, it's still been done in a way that's faithful and period correct, if that makes sense. So
100%.
it is. So the body is original. Like, those are a Carrera guard, so they had a slightly wider guard, but it's not like. But that's all factory body.
Not stupid.
Factory fitment in terms of staggered wheels.
Standard roof.
It did have a sunroof, which most people would pull out, but I've just left in. I don't mind. So it does have a sunroof. Sunroof does work. Never use it though.
Now, did you want to talk a little bit about your branding on your own Porsche?
Well, that's my company, and whilst whilst I always cop it from not not having enough branding or signage on but that people that know that's sort of my little kind of watermark, I guess. So it's still running its 3-litre capacity. This is a logbook car, so it's a logbook 3-litre car, so it's still running its capacity. But the major change, which is more recent, is that the engine was rebuilt and the previous Cagetronic fuel injection system has been replaced with PMO carbies. So that's probably the biggest non-standard change. But again, that's sort of period is correct, but that's not original for this car.
Does that change much noise?
Yeah, it's probably, I'd definitely say it's a lot more temperamental, but it just torquier. So again, looking at doing more tarmac rallying and things like that, this sort of setup is a bit more sort of, so not as usable from a daily point of view, but from the point of view of being able to kind of wring its neck through the hills. This is kind of the setup you want.
And you mentioned the deck lid.
Yep.
So this is you've changed this from what was on there?
Yeah, I used to have a flat deck lid,
okay.
And I put a tail on it. I'm not a big tail guy, but if you get like the nerdy Porsche people, like the 76 and 77, which was also used on the early 3-litre turbos, that particular tail is really, really nice looking tail. Like there's it's like a flat, it's just got this little on the end, and it's a really neat tail. And I always said if I found one, I'd use it. So I did, and I'm using it. So it's but I've got the flat deck lid. It's it's 4 bolts, and you can just sort of change them over. But I like it with the tail. Low drag. Yeah. I like it with the tail.
Should we have a look inside?
Sure, man. Sure.
All right. So what have you changed inside? What's been left alone?
Look.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's a pretty typical like early 911 interior, which is usually pretty Spartan. They were pretty basic sort of interiors, which is kind of what I like about them, really. But yeah, the roll cage is an addition. The seats are addition.
They look mega, by the way.
It did have rear seats, but they've since been they've since been removed.
They've been ejected.
Yeah, they've been ejected. So it is now a 2-seater. But yeah, you've got a full cage, 2 seats, a 6-point harness.
Tell us about the seats though, because again, that retrim is mega.
Yeah, so these are actually an FIA Cobra seat. But a good mate of mine, PJ, Peter Grant.
Yep, yeah.
Guy.
Yeah,
so his brother's a trimmer.
Oh, cool.
So his brother did the seats.
Oh, awesome.
I sourced the tartan, which is a Porsche tartan. It's a Porsche tartan, true to the era. And I managed to get a roll of this tartan and jazzed up the seats a little bit, just to give a little bit of fizz in here. But the rest is all pretty bog stock. There is a different shifter. This is a Wevo shifter. Car's still running its original 915 gearbox, but with these shifters, they're just amazing.
So is that a short shift as well?
No.
Okay.
Not necessarily, but
okay.
they're like uber precise. Like they're just amazing. So yeah, nothing wrong with the 915 box. And then you put one of these on them, they're amazing.
We'll start up top and work our way down because again, cool Momo
Yeah.
wheel with some
Momo-
nice detail on the...
Momo Moto 7 wheel, which you can see is very worn. It's an old wheel. It's done a lot of work. My wife bought me this wheel, and so you know, it's been on the car ever since. I said I think it was a birthday present, but so this wheel's been with me for a long time, and will probably be on the car until it falls off.
Now, there's a lot of love in this car. Just to pause for a second. So your wife bought you the steering wheel.
Yeah.
Your mate's brother did the retrim.
Yeah.
And you've just recently put in a new accelerator pedal.
As you're aware, when we were at Haunted Hills the other week, my accelerator pedal busted. So I got
Not a good place to have that happen.
So I got again quirky 911 thing. They're a floor, base hinged pedal, and it broke at the bottom hinge, which is just this little bit of plastic. I mean, look, admittedly, it'd been in the car since probably original, so it's done. Anyway, standard pedal. Got it through Porsche, because obviously Porsche are great. You call them up, they go, yeah, I've got one here. Go in the next day, pick one up, which is amazing. But it's just this stocky plastic piece of pedal. And my brother, Joshua, who's, skateboard extraordinaire, I said, I knew he'd have some spare grip tape lying around. So, a little bit of grip tape. And now I'm like, it looks great. They're a Renline pedal board. So the pedal boards are like an aftermarket thing. But again, it just neatens up that sort of those floor areas.
And what's your infotainment situation like?
It's just engine audio. That's it. We got
Surround
nothing.
sound,
Yeah, with surround sound. So that's like a USB port for phones, bits and pieces, and then you've got the only other thing is cables and wires, which are all hooked up for your rally computers and your trip computers for when you're doing tarmac rally, but they all sort of sit in there neatly and all the way while it's in regular domestic use.
And the noises though, the sound the glove box makes when you shut it, the sound the door handles make, the boot lid, like everything just sounds Porsche.
It's German,
it's very cool.
It's German quality engineering. So yeah, not much, they said interiors in these were always pretty basic, and nothing really too much has changed, and it's pretty basic.
Should we turn the key thing and start it up and go for a drive?
Sure. Much time in an early 911?
Not as much time as I would like. Do you know anyone who has them?
They're all wankers.
The first thing I notice is how spacious it is in here.
It is.
So roomy. It is.
For
my ass almost fits in the seat.
For two relatively, modestly proportioned gentlemen, it's totally adequate.
Yeah, I can imagine driving across, France and Italy with some bags in the back. Just loving life.
And then you put some helmets on.
Oh yeah. There's actually good room for helmets, which is good. Why this particular car? How did it start? What were the sort of ideas behind it? You were 20-something?
Yeah.
What was the thinking behind getting
20s.
this?
I think that to some extent, with any cars I've had, I sort of feel that there's a little bit of, the car kind of finds you a little bit. Like I don't necessarily go hunting hard, but every now and then, and as time's gone on, as I've come to know more people, you do end up, cars sort of surface, and good cars are hard to find. So I'm find cars in that way. But this particular car, this was more me being probably pretty ignorant young kid who just always wanted a Porsche 911.
Optimistic.
Yeah, and then you see the little iconic red. And as I said, I really like the impact bumpers. They're sort of they're a bit of an red-headed stepchild, so to speak, with a lot of these things.
Are we talking trading post? This wasn't the days of just looking on eBay.
This was early car sales, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I don't want to say the gentleman who I bought it off. I still remember his name. Still remember him very well. He was a solicitor.
Yep.
It was his daily drive, and I bought it off him. And look, it's was just one of those things. It was a long transaction, went over a long period of time, you know, because you sort of, I've only got this much money, you know, like when you go to, a kid goes into the shop and they put all their money on the counter and they go, what can I buy with this?
Yeah.
And it's like, you still don't have enough.
Yeah.
But it's, a transaction eventuated, and I didn't actually even drive the car. Most cars, most 911s I bought, I've never actually driven before I bought them. And this was no exception. I didn't drive it. It went straight to my mechanic at the time, who, you know, gave it a once over, and, you know, I was in his hands because he's like, you're a young kid, you don't know what you're doing. It's your first 911. We want to make sure, you know, you're not getting yourself too in over your head. So it was with them for quite a while, and then I got the call that it was ready, and the first time I drove it was when I drove it out of their workshop.
But what was that like? I mean, what was that feeling like that you got your first 911 that you've been wanting? I'm guessing thinking about since you were a kid.
Yeah, it was exciting, but also a little bit overwhelming. Trying not to like stomp on the brake pedal when you think it's the clutch kind of scenario, because obviously everything's quite a bit offset. And I remember I drove it into work and I had to get petrol, and I remember being at the petrol station for like 10 minutes trying to work out, well, where's actually the, like, I can see there's a fuel filler cap over there, but where's the switch to open that fuel filler, you know, and like all these sort of little neurotic things that are, you know, you come to sort of learn in the 911. But at that time, I'm like, I had no idea. So there was a steep learning curve, and then as time went on, you know, I've come to obviously know this car. I've spent so much time in this car. And it's been everywhere.
Initial goals, aspirations, ideas for the car. What did you sort of want to do with it?
I think as like, you know, like we're drivers, right? We like, you know, there's an aspirational thing to have a car, but then you're a driver. So naturally, the more you start driving, the more you get onto that slippery slope of sort of going, ooh, I wouldn't mind doing some, something more, something more energetic with the car, and then
a bit adventurous, a little spicy.
You know, sort of go on a track and do this and do that. So I think that's sort of always been the idea with this car, was always going to become some sort of, at least even a club level, you know, club car where I could go and do just some sprint events and bits and pieces. But then, which I did for many years, and then I met Le Jim, and then he got me into hill climbing. Yeah. And then from hill climbing, then we both then morphed into some tarmac rally, which is just, you know, I mean, obviously,
it's a game changer.
Jim's a big rally tragic, but he's like well and truly corrupted me, and you know, we've got a lot of fond memories doing rallying with him in his Evo, and then likewise, you know, we did, you know, we've done a bit of rallying in this.
So that might lead into my next question, which is, what elements or specific things do you get from the car that still make you giggle or smile or just make you eternally happy every day when you drive it, or every time you drive it?
There's a simplicity, there's a certain charm that, you know, that the quirkiness of the 911 sort of carries, you know, and then I think after you've sort of spent a bit of time in an early 911, it's really hard to kind of like, you know,
just organic.
Yeah, you know, I think they're really fun, and they are a bit quirky, and I think that once you start to get to know them, they just, you know, you sort of develop a relationship, unlike, you know, you can develop with things that maybe don't quite have those same layers of, let's say, complexity or nuance that these have, you know, and I think that that's why they're obviously such a cliche with so many people that are, you know,
stereotype for a reason.
Yeah, you know, car tragics is that, you know, the early 911 sort of the quintessential sort of one car to do it all.
Even in the passenger seat though, hearing that engine in the back, and we're just cruising around, but it just sounds like it wants to go. It sounds like it wants to open up. We've also picked a really nice day in Melbourne with some rain. Yeah. So we're being very respectful, but
quintessential.
It's really tapping you on the shoulder, being whenever you want to go, you can feel that it wants to. Yeah. It wants to go.
They're not like these cars. They're not like super high powered. It's not a super high powered car.
What sort of power are we talking roughly with this?
It's probably like mid mid 200-ish horsepower. You know,
It's hard to beat that, isn't it?
Doesn't weigh a lot.
No.
And, you know, it's just, you 3 pedals, a stick, and, you know,
all the right noises.
Early 911 air-cooled engine, you know. It's just like that, it's that recipe. You don't want too much, it's just enough, you know.
Now you are quite, as you said, a bit of a Porsche tragic. We saw there was one other, the 912, next to this at base camp where we started filming.
Yeah.
You've also got another green Mini.
Yeah, so I've purchased a car which is sort of the next goal in my driving repertoire and development is starting to do some door-to-door circuit racing. So I've recently purchased Alex Webster's old Group S race car, which is a 2-litre. He's now gone into a 2.7 litre. So he's gone up to a different sort of league within the same category. But his 2-litre was just sort of felt like a really good little perfect little starting point for me.
And how does the red one compare with the other 2 that you have? But I'll also point out as well, the one that I fell in love with when we met the first time was a car that you sold that I'm still not quite over.
No.
Was your 996 GT3 RS.
Yeah, that was.
How do the cars sort of compare? In this particular, the red one, is there a similarity, differences?
Look, there's a really interesting sort of, like, I love 996 GT3s because I'm really obviously a very early, like I'm an early 911 tragic, but that seems to, a 996 is a thoroughly modern car to me. Yeah. Even though it isn't. So, you know, for most people, it's still a 20-odd-year-old car. But
we're 2 bald heads in an old Porsche. We're old.
But it feels very modern to me. But there's still a certain. It feels like a modern Porsche, but there's still a really intrinsic early car feel to it, which is why I love them. And the RS, I had a Mark 1 996 for many years, and I sold that to get into the Mark 2 RS, which was a dream car. But having said that, now just having the 3 early cars, I love my 912. I drive it everywhere. I drive it more than anything. I'm always in that. And then you've got this car, which again is like quick enough. And the green car, the 2-litre, this is obviously a 3-litre, and the 2-litre just sort of sits perfectly in between the 912 and this in the garage. Like the 2-litre's kind of got that really, really lovely sort of modest sensibility of the 912, but just with a little bit more spice. Not quite as much spice as this, but like it's a really nice rounding thing. You've sort of got road, circuit and rally, and that's kind of like, I mean, you could do it all in the one, but as you get into these things a little bit more, as I'm sure you understand and respect, there's a certain minutiae that certain cars do it a bit better.
For sure.
So,
with that experience then, is there advice that you might be able to give someone who's just starting their Porsche journey, looking at classics, looking at a car like this 911, things that you've learned, either mistakes that you've made or things that went really well that you think some advice or help that you could give someone?
Oh, man,
or that's just too in-depth?
So much advice.
We do have a certain amount of battery life. But
do it. Like, I mean,
first thing, get one.
Do it.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people hesitate. What's it cost to run an old one compared to a new one? And I'd say, like, probably not too dissimilar. It's probably the same, to be honest. Like, old cars, these things are pretty robust cars. So, and if you spend the money on them and you do it right, they'll treat and look after them. They'll do everything. But we've got a good car culture here in Melbourne. But I think there's a really lovely community also around. Especially with Porsches, there's a really good local car community around here. So being able to, I managed to meet a few people when I first started, which were really pivotal, and they really helped me. But the wealth of knowledge that's there now, and between some of the groups and the clubs that I'm involved with now, like there's just so many people. So and everyone obviously loves talking about their cars. So there's no shortage of knowledge. So I would just really recommend, if you're looking at doing it, yeah, sure, sit on car sales and binge like we all do, but you know, get involved, try and reach out to a couple of groups, and get on some drives and get in some pit garages, and you know,
Talk to people.
start picking their brain, and then you'll then realise, because again, you go, oh, I want a Porsche 911. It's like
where do you start?
there's like 50 different models of the current gen. Like, what do you want?
Yeah.
What are you going to do with it? So it really, and that's where you really want to talk to people that live with these cars on a day-to-day basis and do all the things with these cars that you do, and then you can sort of go, well, look, actually, maybe this model's going to be more suited to what I'm into.
And drive. I think people don't drive enough.
Yeah.
I think if you're looking at a car, obviously if it's in a driving state, just have a drive. Like you said, it's that connection that you have with the car.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll drive one and it really click with, and sometimes you'll be like, not my thing.
That's it. And then like, and you get people that, you know, instantly sort of just like, I just want a 911. But like you will find that because there is such a vast array of different models and variants and things, and then obviously, you know, there's mods and all sorts of other things you can do. Like it's a very deep dive. So
It's a slippery slope.
very slippery slope. So definitely speak to people.
Speaking of just driving them, with mild trepidation, should we do a driver change and see if I can drive this car with my shoes on?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think it's time.
Okay.
I think it's time, Dave.
Whew.
We're gonna.
This is it.
I'll put my favourite soundtrack on.
This is emotional.
Favourite soundtrack, and we'll go for a drive.
Now, door
Just
handle.
pull that strap.
That's what she said. Hey, that skate tape's pretty good.
Skate tape's pretty good.
Immediately, way more comfortable, other than the fact that my hips don't fit in the seat, way more comfortable than I was actually expecting. The ride's actually super compliant. It's not stiff or harsh, or steering's not crazy heavy like you get in a lot of older cars, and it feels immediately difficult.
Yeah.
It feels like something you need to respect because of it's your car and just the age of equipment. You want to be nice, mechanically nice to it. But it also, like I said before, from that seat, you can feel the car also being like, it's okay if you want to rag me.
Yeah.
And it's a nice balance.
Like, you know, they're the kind of cars I like. The cars that look at you and go, come on, man.
Yeah, that's,
like,
you can feel that. I'm aware of that.
They're the kind of cars I like. You know,
I'm also aware that you're sitting next to me.
You see like a little Ford Escort or a little Mini Cooper sitting on the side of the road, and you get excited purely because you know that car's looking at you going, come on, man, come on.
It sounds so nice. And again, I really like the shifter.
Yeah, shifter's cool, eh? We're going to follow the road around.
Are you going to call notes soon? I can feel it.
7 left, opens.
It doesn't help with me anyway.
Don't cut.
I love old cars because the visions, I mean, there's a bit of cage and stuff, but the vision out is actually really nice.
Yeah. Just one more little speed bump here.
Gearbox feels ridiculously smooth. That's so nice. And like I said, I'm happy that it's got brakes. It feels nice under brakes. It's beautiful. The skate tape makes all the difference, doesn't it?
Oh, mate. Expensive mod.
It is spitting rain, and Hugh's, in my view, given me the keys to his very priceless Porsche, but it feels so nice.
This is quintessential tarmac weather, mate.
Oh, yeah, no.
This is
just go.
You don't get nice.
And you don't have tyres from 1977 on there, so.
Tread pattern from 1977, yes.
Yes.
Compound, no.
Yeah, we've got more rain now, which is beautiful. It feels really nice. Like I said, clutch, brakes,
You'll have to,
seat position is nice, steering's nice. It feels like the kind of car that you, like you said, may not necessarily drive every single day, although you could. It's actually quite livable. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't feel hardcore, it doesn't feel edgy. Well, mate, before we totally fog up, can I just say a massive thank you for spending the time, for talking us through it as the rain gets heavier. It's a sign from the heavens. For letting me drive your car, from humble beginnings when we first met, and I
naughty kids table,
and I was drooling over your GT3 RS, being like, this is my dream car. I love that car.
It was pretty good that we met at a track, and I was in that car.
At Phillip Island,
yeah,
for charity drive days. Hugh and I met a few of the others.
Yeah.
Met your brother, and we clicked on all the right things, which was just a genuine love of cars and of sharing them with people, and that's what triggered all of this, is to get together and have a talk about cars.
Just car guys, and then the bromance just blossoms from there.
But I also have to say, and we were talking about this when we filmed it before, you know, a lot of people, it starts to rain, not going to take the car out. A lot of people, we're filming in the rain, it gets dirty. You drive it, and you've driven all your cars that I've known you've had. I'm the same, mostly, but you got to enjoy it. You know, I get cars that sit in the garage sometimes or whatever, but you've got to enjoy them, and it's a beautiful car to drive. So
definitely more richer experience having been able to enjoy them, you know, and drive them properly, and yeah, exercise them regularly. They definitely drive. They definitely drive better for it.
If you've got a car that you love and you're passionate about, let us know in the comments below, or better yet, reach out and we'll see if we can get behind the wheel with you and your pride and joy. In the meantime, like, share, subscribe, do all the things, and we'll see you next time.
Gonna let some sunshine.